Mainstream science, despite all its claims of objectivity, and despite the fact it attempts to lay claim to the truth, is itself a religion. Science places itself on a pedestal and assures everyone it has dispassionately arrived at its conclusions. Meanwhile, however, it is full of assumptions, denials and limitations, and makes the serious mistake of presenting its theories as facts. The errors of mainstream science are gladly seized upon by technocrats, eager to use science and technology to further their own ambitions of control, and include forcing the vaccine, GMO, surveillance, man-made global warming, geoengineering, smart and microchipping agendas onto an unsuspecting public. The planned New World Order has a massive technocratic aspect. Materialism, the driving force behind mainstream science, has been shown again and again to lack the capacity to explain the world around us, especially in relation to idealism or other theories that account for the energetic nature of reality. Yet, despite this, we remain collectively bedazzled by materialism, because science is a religion that has induced a certain faith in us. Up until recently, it has still been difficult for society at large to accept the fact that the unseen energetic realms are more powerful and more primal than the material realms we can see and touch, but that is starting to change. Before I continue the video, please give a like if you've learned something. And don't forget to subscribe, and also click the notification bell too, so you won't miss any update. And watch to the end to avoid misunderstanding. Thank you. This is certainly not the first time we have struggled with the debate of whether the world can best be described by materialism. The ancient Greek philosophers and scientists thought long and hard about the issue. Materialism versus idealism is really the philosophical battle between the ideas that matter exists independently and that consciousness doesn't exist or is secondary, as opposed to the idea that consciousness, thought and energy are primary and that matter is secondary. Democritus championed the first viewpoint, and his ideas were taken further by Aristotle, whereas Plato proposed the second with his famous theory of the world of forms, or world of ideas. According to Plato, our materialist reality is an inferior copy of a more perfect world. This is exactly in alignment with what various cultures, shamans, religions and spiritual traditions have been saying about the preeminence of energy and mind over matter. Even many distinguished mainstream Western scientists over the last 100+ years have grasped the point that matter is not solid. Here are the very best and brightest of them, alluding to the fact that energy is preeminent to matter. Max Planck said, "All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force, which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter." Nikola Tesla said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency and vibration." The day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. Werner Heisenberg said, "The atoms or elementary particles themselves are not real, they form a world of potentialities or possibilities, rather than one of things or facts." Albert Einstein said, "We may therefore regard matter as being constituted by the regions of space in which the field is extremely intense. There is no place in this new kind of physics for the field in matter, for the field is the only reality. The field is the sole governing agency of the particle." Niels Bohr said, "Everything we call real is made of things that cannot be regarded as real." Plato also wrote that the entire universe can be explained mathematically by numbers. This exactly aligns itself with the idea that we live in a holographic universe, a kind of computer simulation with digital numbers at its foundation. The Renaissance was heralded as a golden age for humanity, and in many ways it was, but it also further cemented the left-brain materialist view of the world, which can be found in the works of Copernicus, Galileo, Descartes and Newton. Copernicus and Galileo famously proposed heliocentrism over the existing geocentric model, but as the recent rise of the flat earth movement has shown, there is a copious amount of evidence to suggest that the heliocentric theory is far from being complete and foolproof. It was Descartes who famously claimed, "I think, therefore I am," and gave birth to the falsehood that thinking, reason, and logic is the base of our existence, when in fact, being or consciousness is. There is no brain to think without a consciousness that animates it. Newton, for all the great work he did for physics, came up with a set of abstract, mathematically based mechanical formulae, which he called the laws of nature. Though he was to live several centuries after Newton, genius inventor and true scientist Nikola Tesla made a very telling comment regarding the tendency of mainstream science and scientists to get stuck in a rut with their abstract mathematical theories. This statement could most definitely be applied to Einstein, who despite his brilliance in proposing the theory of relativity, worked for 3+ decades afterwards and could never come up with a more complete theory. Tesla said, "Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality." Charles Darwin, for those of you who didn't know, was part of an elite family who favored eugenics, and it is not surprising that his theory of evolution emphasized dog-eat-dog competitiveness, survival of the fittest, and might is right, all habits and values of the psychopathic ruling class. Those who insist that the idea that science is a religion is false may be hard-pressed to explain why someone like Darwin chose to focus on those elements of nature in this theory, instead of focusing on the incredible symbiosis and cooperation which is also widespread in nature, and to a greater extent than competition. Fast forward to today, and it seems science is a religion like never before. What's happening at CERN, with the Hadron Collider's search for ever smaller and smaller particles, seems like materialistic mainstream science, desperately trying to justify itself and its outmoded theory, like a dog forever chasing its tail in vain. In November 2014, Dr. Brian Whitworth published a paper which contrasted the materialistic and idealistic views, which he framed as physical realism and quantum realism. When he matched them to data, he found the quantum realism model fit the observations and facts much better. He writes, "The Higgs boson is the virtual particle created by an invisible field to explain another virtual particle created by another invisible field to explain an actual effect or neutron decay. Given dark energy and dark matter, it explains at best 4% of the mass of the universe, but the standard model needs it, so when after 50 years CERN found a millionth of a second signal in the possible range, physics was relieved. There is no evidence this particle has any effect on mass at all, but the standard model survives." By piling fields upon fields, the standard model now has at least 48 point particles, 24 fitted properties, 5 overlapping invisible fields, and 14 virtual particles that pop in and out of existence on demand, anywhere, anytime. And it isn't finished yet, as each new effect needs a new field. For example, inflation needs an inflaton field. If this approach, founded on physical realism, is preferred, it isn't because of its simplicity, as it is hard to imagine anything more complicated. Chapter 4 suggests that while the fitted calculations work, their interpretation is a mythology on a scale not seen since Ptolemy's epicycles. Materialism places so much stock in what we can apprehend with our 5 senses, especially sight, since it is the dominant sense for most people. Yet, of what we know exists in the full electromagnetic spectrum, we can only see a tiny range from approximately 700 to 400 nanometers between the infrared and ultraviolet rays. According to research, if the electromagnetic spectrum were a reel of film 2,500 miles long, stretching from California to Alaska, then the band of visible light would be around 1 inch. According to my calculations, if these numbers are correct, that means that we only perceive 0.00000006313113% of what is really there. So why does mainstream science place so much faith in our 5-sense reality and disregard the unseen as fantasy or imagination? When we are so blind. So far, I have discussed the reasons why mainstream science is ideologically or theoretically on the wrong track. I haven't even begun to touch the ways in which science is horribly misguided and mistaken on a practical level. Sad to say, science has been totally corrupted by special interests who fund and determine the outcome of much of the research. They can pay for whatever scientific result they want for their agenda, not only because one's very act of observation determines one's reality, but also because they can slant, distort, and omit data in line with their goals. Simply put, a scientist discovering the wrong result will be quickly rejected and defended. This fake and fraudulent science, which is not true science at all, but rather corporate junk science which passes under the rubric of science, is all-pervasive. As Marcia Angel, former editor-in-chief of the esteemed New England Journal of Medicine, or NEJM, had to say about the pervasive fraudulent scientific research, it is simply no longer possible to believe much of the clinical research that is published, or to rely on the judgment of trusted physicians or authoritative medical guidelines. I take no pleasure in this conclusion, which I reached slowly and reluctantly over my 2 decades as an editor of the New England Journal of Medicine. Happily, there are many true scientists standing outside of the fakery and putting forth alternative evidence to consider. The truth cannot be hidden forever. Mainstream scientists will probably feel aghast to hear it, but the truth is that science is a religion with its own high priests. They just wear white coats rather than black gowns. It requires belief or faith in its theories or doctrine, which can never ultimately be proven: evolution, relativity, Big Bang, because they are full of assumptions and contradictions. There is always at least one question that can never be answered, and constantly redefining terms, omitting numbers or inventing new factors becomes, at a certain point, like twisting facts to suit theories, rather than twisting theories to suit facts, as the fictional character Sherlock Holmes liked to say. Terence McKenna humorously put it like this: modern science is based on the principle, give us one free miracle, and we'll explain the rest. The one free miracle is the appearance of all the mass and energy in the universe, and all the laws that govern it in a single instant from nothing. Materialist science has tried to convince us that everything can be explained with solid atoms, but as various experiments have proven, only theories which account for consciousness, energy, non-locality, and other phenomena make sense. Particles are probability distributions, not little hard things. Materialism falls short again and again in describing and predicting our world. We actually live in a holographic universe, a computer simulation which looks and feels real, but which is composed of stuff which is not solid. Mainstream materialistic science is a religion, and the time is long overdue to give up the faith. Comment below with more topic ideas for me to discuss. As a lot of care and hard work goes into this, likes and subscribe, let me know I'm doing a good job. All is appreciated greatly. You may not agree with everything from the content I post. Apply critical thinking and use discernment to come to your own conclusions regarding the content. Thanks for watching this video. This Everything Inside Me channel. See you on the next video. Stay safe and healthy.